How's your Christmas shopping coming?
I don't want you to look at my budget until after Christmas.
No, that's not going to happen.
We need to sit down and walk through what a college life budget needs to look like, and that's going to happen in like 3 weeks. Hello and welcome to the Resilient Lineage podcast, where we reflect on the past, anticipate the future, and discover what God is up to today. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Milo.
I'm Milo's daughter.
And I'm Olivia's dad.
Yeah.
And we are...
This is our third part
of our looking at kind of some aspects of Christmas. And
Elements of Christmas. And some aspects that we have around our home. Recognize that this might not be as cross-cultural, but definitely something that's common in America. So last week we looked at the candy cane.
And the week before that we looked at the movie Christmas with the Cranks, which was your pick to consider that movie. And you came up with our show notes for today.
Kind of.
And so, if you're listening to this podcast, I want to thank you for being one of our listeners and being part of this experience over the course of this last year. Thank you for sharing it. Today I had somebody come up to me and was like, "Hey, I was listening to your podcast and I really like episode whatever it was," and we were talking a little bit about that, which was encouraging.
Nice.
Yeah. So thank you for those of you that have been a source of encouragement to us and gotten the word out and let others know and shared the link and stuff. We really appreciate it. We are diving into the topic of Christmas, kind of different elements. And so we picked a movie. We picked kind of like a food with the candy canes.
So this week we're going to talk about ornaments.
Today we're talking about decorations. Specifically ornaments. And then next week we're going to look at a Christmas carol.
Yeah.
So we have one of your mom's collections is Christmas ornaments.
I think that's like her main collection. If that's not it, it's dishes.
Yes, those are the two things she collects. And so when we travel, and she looks for souvenirs, what she looks for are things that are either like Christmas ornaments or things that could become Christmas ornaments.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. When we lived in Spain, we would travel a lot, so we would either get tickets from the subway or just something that's paper. She'll be like, save those. I need to put hole punches and put a ribbon and they're going to go on our tree. And it's okay.
So if you come to our house, one of the things you'll see is, one, we have 7 trees.
Yeah.
I think. And there's nothing generic on the trees. It's all very tailored. In fact, I had some friends over the other day and they came in and your mom she looks at them, she's like, "Hey," they're like, "Wow, you guys got Christmas out." She's like, "Yeah, guess how many trees I have." And then she proceeded to give them a tour of all the trees and all the ideas and where everything came from. And it's her collection. It's what she's excited about, which is great. I'm glad she has that.
She takes great pride.
She does. And she's gotten very creative. There's been places we visited where maybe they don't sell a Christmas ornament, so she'll buy a keychain that will have the symbol or something that is reminiscent of that particular area, and then she'll turn that keychain into a Christmas ornament. So we have a whole tree that is dedicated to places we've visited, and then we have a tree for family stories, and then we have a tree that's her kitchen tree, which has the 2-ounce Starbucks cups all over it. And
Mom will be like, "There's 24.
Yeah, she keeps inventory of all of her stuff. I'm astonished at how well she knows every little detail about these ornaments, and because it's her hobby, it's what she looks
passionate
forward to
about.
Yeah, which is great.
It feels like a winter wonderland on the inside.
It does. It's a very festive. It's not unclear that it's Christmas when you come to our house right now. So we were talking because of that. You had the idea of wanting to talk about ornaments.
Yeah, and it's been great. So I did a little history session for maybe
walk
like
us down
10 minutes.
I barely looked over these notes.
Okay, so kind of what we talked about last week. This could be 100% real.
Or mythology.
It's just a cool story. I thought I'd share it. I will post the link to where I got this.
Okay.
But so the idea of decorating a tree, just the tree itself, for Christmas began in Germany, where they used to add fruits and nuts to trees once the leaves would fall off to symbolize like a promise of the spring to come. So it wasn't like a Christmas specific, more like winter specific.
Okay.
Of like, this generation, this thing is like dead, and we're gonna add life and promise that there's gonna be more life. So in 1605, a fir tree was brought inside and adorned with paper roses and candles, nuts, and fruits, which was groundbreaking. And the idea of decorating a tree indoors took off and spread across Germany. And then in the 1800s,
isn't that funny? Because like the candy cane came from Germany as well.
You know, I just think we should move to Germany. Let's do that bridge.
You want to do that?
Yeah. Okay. And then in the 1800s.
Well, when we lived in Spain, that was one of the things people would do, is because they would have Christmas. What did they call it?
Like Christmas Town?
Town or something like that. And they
had Christmas markets.
Markets, that's what it was. You would go into these German villages and they would have these markets for selling all kinds of Christmassy stuff. And it was like the thing to do. In December was to go to Germany and visit these Christmas markets. Spain had them as well. But not like everybody, like they talked like Germany was the place to go for the Christmas markets. And this helps explain why. Like the history of the tree, like we talked yesterday or last time about
the candy cane.
The candy cane. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, good thought. In the 1800s, German immigrants brought the tradition to America, who made their own interpretations of it. And then early ornaments were made out of whatever items that family had available to them. Fruit, like especially apples or nuts, or string of popcorn and cranberries, which is really popular. Paper streams, candles, metal foil. Oh yeah, and then I like didn't add this in, but like the metal foil was added in because then like the lights around the house would reflect off of it to like look like lights. So yeah. I don't know how you say his name. Hans Grainer. I'm just going to go for that.
Sure.
Started
just
making...
the
Hans Grainer started making glass ball ornaments called baubles during the 1800s.
Called bobbleheads?
Baubles.
Bobbleheads? Called Funko Pops?
Oh, no.
Okay. Sorry.
1800s, Dad.
Oh.
Glass? Right. I don't know if... Okay. Which began like the first manufactured Christmas ornaments. And then in the 19th century, enterprising Woolworth brought the idea to America and sold more than like $25 million worth per year of just manufacturing.
Do you know who F.W. Woolworth is? Mm-mm. So there used to be a general store called Woolworth's. And it was a place that would like, they'd have a pharmaceutical. And so in the movie, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
When George goes into that place and he's making the sodas when he's a kid, and there's the pharmacy in the back. Okay, that was like a type of Woolworths.
Okay,
it would have clothing, and
like
it would have
first department.
Yeah,
Not
quite department store, because it wasn't big enough to have like departments, but it would have sort of, for small towns, sort of your general stuff.
Yeah.
So it would have tools, and it would have seeds, and it would have clothes, and just kind of a general set of things, but not a huge facility. Like there would be the grain mill that would have big stuff if you needed lots of things, right? Yeah. So it was more for like supporting the domestic efforts of the home than the field. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so Woolworths was the like chain store back in the day. Like what Walmart is to today, as far as its ubiquity. Mm-hmm. Like you say Walmart, everybody knows what you're talking about. Even if they don't shop there, they know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Woolworths was back then.
I'm so glad you know this.
Yeah, so for Woolworth to
manufacture these ornaments.
Yeah, that would have catapulted it into this commercially adopted way of doing Christmas.
Yeah. Very cool. And then Yeah, so then eventually manufacturers began using injection moldings, with plastic materials that allowed for them to make a variety of shapes and sizes and change the shape. And yeah, so then I also like the bauble, I don't know, because they're made like in balls, like typical ornaments are like ball shape.
Yeah.
Like, and it's similar to like how an apple would look on your tree. Like they kind of got that.
That's
shape.
That's an interesting. Oh, okay. That makes a lot. I had never even thought about that. Like why a
that
bulb?
shape?
Yeah, why that shape?
Yeah.
Because it was linked to that harvest idea way back.
Which it had a more like prominent meaning back in the day. Promise for a spring to come.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we just put it up because it looks pretty. This is aesthetic.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the history.
Yeah.
That's a history, I guess. A theory, maybe. Or it's true.
Yeah, well, some of this stuff it's always, the further back you go, sometimes unless there's really good records, it can be difficult to know what has become sort of folklore and what has become truth. But I imagine by the time you're getting into the 18th, the 19th century, like we still have shopping catalogs and things like that from that era, so we're able to see what was being sold and what was being purchased and stuff. Okay, no, wow, you just taught me a bunch of stuff. I didn't know any of that.
The more you know.
The more you know.
Your brain gets bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just dive in.
Okay, but why are we talking about this?
Why are we talking about this? So why do we use ornaments? I had 2 banners, and then Dad was like, what's the value of this? And I was just stared at him, hoping that would answer some revelation.
Your bangers weren't banging.
Okay.
Well, okay, so the discussion was, why are we talking about this?
And then I just started throwing vocabulary at you. Then one of the words I used was not a word. But we'll just hit all 3 and then we'll dive in.
Back? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you go for it.
1, why do we use ornaments? Like discovering the meaning. 1, mark the progress. 2, share the family story. And then 3, strengthen family connections.
And the idea is, okay, so one of the things we're trying to do this with these series of podcasts around this kind of Christmas themed series of podcasts is because we want to give you the opportunity to think about maybe some aspects of Christmas from just a little bit different perspective that could infuse some meaning and intentionality behind what you're doing. So instead of just decorating for Christmas, because this is what we've always done, like, well, what if there was a way to still decorate for Christmas, but do it with a different set of meaning? Or the next time you grab that candy cane, or you give somebody that candy cane, or the next time you sit down and watch a Christmas movie. Like we talked about Christmas with the Cranks, but it could be any Christmas movie. Like what are the values that are in this movie that are good to think about this time of year, to reflect upon this time of year? Next week we're going to talk about a Christmas carol, and what is the theology that's in that? And as we sing these carols, what is that theology that we need to remind ourselves of? So the intent is to look at these things that sometimes we do for tradition's sake, or we do for the purposes of, we don't want to be the Scrooge. We don't want to, disappoint others. But the busyness of life, maybe it hasn't been a great year. Maybe it's been a really good year, and it's easy to get distracted with the commercialization of things. Like, so despite all of that, like, how can we sort of pause for a second and look at these things from a different perspective? So like we're talking about, we got 7 trees around our house, and which your mom gets all the credit for setting those up and decorating them and, managing all of the, 672 totes that we have. It's not that many, but
feels like it.
Feels like that many from time to time.
I will say it astonishes me how much storage, where these tubs come from. Because our whole upstairs above our garage will just be filled with bins. I'm like, where do we keep this stuff?
Yeah, well, it's because we organize well.
That's fair. I don't.
But the idea is so looking at these things, like you just highlight, we're going to walk through each of these things. But so my encouragement to you, as you're listening to this podcast, is think through the ornaments you have in your home, or maybe you're a college kid and you're still in school and you're driving home right now and you're thinking about these things. So reflect on the ornaments you're going to see when you get home. What is the story behind those things? Why are we doing that? Like, and you know, but there's folks that are listening to this that are looking at establishing their own home, their own traditions. How are they going to choose to do these things? And we're not saying that there's a right or wrong way, as much as it is. I think one of the things your mom and I tried to do at the very beginning of our marriage relationship, to be honest with you, and then that led into our marriage, was we wanted to do things intentionally with meaning and purpose. We didn't want to do things because this is what dating people do, or you know what I mean, or this is what engaged people do, or newlyweds, or whatever. We wanted to do things out of intentionality. Like there's a very clear objective that we have, and that objective ultimately is to, you know God and make him known, right? Like this idea of orienting our lives towards him. And so how can we order this part of our life in a way that aims towards him? Okay, so let's look at this first point.
Yeah. Mark the progress. Ornaments can help us remember significant moments with family members, or fostering emotional ties.
Yeah, so okay, so maybe it helps. I just realized this might not be incredibly helpful because, like you were talking about, the Christmas bulbs that you could buy at Woolworths, right?
Baubles.
Okay, so if you got a bunch of generic bulbs decorating a tree, which is fine, like people will do that for aesthetic reasons, right? Okay, that's good. There might, what's the significance of that?
Are you doing it just to?
Yeah, how is that? Well, how is that marking progress? Well, it's probably not, right?
Like, I mean, you can see that in companies or like at work where they have a work Christmas tree.
Sure.
Where it's not going to have like that sentimental of a reason.
Yeah, it's not personalized.
It's like, it feels like winter.
Yeah.
Here's this.
But so what we're talking about, like we don't have any of those trees in our house. We have trees that every ornament has a story behind it. And it's a story that is part of our journey as a family. And so,
it didn't start with 7. It started with a 1.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So,
keep that in mind.
25 years from now, we'll have 14 trees. We'll have a grove.
The highest we've ever had is 12.
What?
Yeah. North Carolina.
Oh. And some of those I don't count.
Okay.
You guys counted.
Snoopy.
Yeah. No.
I count. It's a tree.
So mark the progress. So the like on some of our trees, there's pictures of, like your mom has these pictures of like our first home, and it'll say 1998, right? Because that was the first time we had a home as a married couple. And then there's times when there's like one down there that's a photo of my parents and your mom's mom and stepdad, and I think we took the picture of the 4 of them when they came for when your brother was born, because Andrew was born December 26th. And so if you look at that, it's funny because it's like they look young now, because I'm older than they were. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So I share that because it's like it's hanging on our tree, so it marks this moment in time. So if if you're familiar with our family, or even particular times in our family, like maybe you met us when we lived in Spain, or you met us when we lived in Oregon, or you met us when we lived in wherever, right? The 9 places we've lived. If you've met us in those times, you would be able to find ornaments and go like, oh, I remember that house. Now what's this house? Or I remember that. I didn't know you guys had a dog. Oh, yeah, here's the ornament of our dog, right? And
if you just move your eyes 2 feet.
So it tells this story of our family history, because, we don't have a dog now.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was a good dog. But we had a dog at one point in time, right? And so, so it marks this progression. And I think that's fun to do. As families, in kind of going through all that.
Yeah. No, and I'll say, you know, like looking at old photos or like old photos, like when you guys were still living.
Back in the 1900s.
Yeah. Like seeing, Mom has like a couple photos when she was maybe 9 and you were 6 or just floating around. It's like I didn't get to meet that version of Milo or Bethany, but it's like that was like a moment captured at that time that we can have every year. And it's like just because that was before my time. Like it's still like symbolic because I'm like, oh, there's my parents.
You know, there's this great line. I don't think I've seen it. I think it was a documentary about the World War II generation that came out several years ago. And I think the title of the documentary was They Were Young Ones. And the idea is that here's a generation that we've only ever known as old. But there was a time when they weren't. And they saved the world. So I think there's this value every generation to reflect on, like you just said. There's a whole history here I'm unfamiliar with. What they thought about, they struggled with, they were tempted with, they aspired to be. All of those things that I feel are the things that they felt as well. Different time, maybe some different obstacles, but still obstacles. You know, so there's and we talk. This podcast is titled, Resilient Lineage. This idea that how can we, from generation to generation, be that kind of resilient lineage that we're preparing, we're staging, we're setting up the next generation for success.
Yeah. So, first one's marking the progress. Second one, share the family story. So ornaments can serve as reminders of family stories and histories that facilitate the passing down of traditions. Like we were talking to Mom moments before we hit record.
She was super excited to hear we were doing a podcast on.
And she was like, oh, okay. What do you need help with? And that's my mom. But like she said that like when you guys were newlyweds, like one of the gifts from your parents was, here's a box of all your ornaments that you either made or that's you or we don't want anymore, but like here, this is yours, that you two had your own that then you could grow and like share that story between you two. Then you gotta have a kid and then another kid and move around.
And someday we'll pass on all these things to you.
They'll be like, here's your box.
We'll give you an entire tree's worth of ornaments.
Don't say that. Mom would, like, if she hears that on this podcast, she's going to start mourning. She'll be like, we didn't agree to this, did we? I don't think so. Did we have this conversation? No, but also, like when you have people over, it's like, these are people that you've never met, like your parents or friends that we met along the way that are on our tree, or it's just cool to share that with people that haven't been to our house yet or that have been, that like looking at our tree. Also, I will say, whenever we have people over and we have like a tree out, whether that's like a party or just having families over, like they'll linger independently and look at the ornaments without you being there. Like they're like, oh, like look at this, and like they're making their own story and perception of our lives,
because they're finding themselves even in the story. What can they relate to? What can they not? What connects with them? Yeah, that's true. And I think that'll happen too. We're not at a place yet of having, you're not married, your brother's not married. Obviously, there's no grandkids. So there will come a time when the family will be larger, and those folks will be looking to connect with this larger family story, right? What is their role within it? What is their place within it? And this is a little bit broader than ornaments, but I thought it was interesting because I was just out in Oregon with your mom a couple weeks ago, and Nana has some. She just has about half of her Christmas stuff out, and the stockings are hung. And I remember there was a time when it said there was Dad, Milo, Mary, Mom. And then it went from Dad, Milo, Bethany, Mary, Mom. And then Dad, Milo, Bethany, Mary, Eric, Mom. And guess what it is now?
Papa. All the grandkids.
Andrew, Olivia, Macy, Daphne, Lola, Nana.
Parents, gone.
We're gone.
Booted. What do you bring to the table? Kids.
I was just looking at that and I thought, we're not even on the mantle anymore.
You're like, I brought these kids to you.
But what does that tell you? Like that's communicating this shared family story, right? That it started off this and it's grown and it's morphed and now it's this larger thing. You know, it used to be a family of 4 and now it's a family of
11,
which is, you know, like really cool when you think about it. And so like our decorations, and we were talking about ornaments, you extend this out to other places, right? But decorations definitely can communicate that family history, that lineage that is in place.
Yeah. And then if the second one's share the family story, the last one is like strengthen family connections, which ornaments can cultivate sharing and reminiscing that deepen family relationships.
What?
I'm just staring at you.
Oh, was that?
That was your cue.
Was I supposed to jump into something?
I gave you the stare you give me.
Oh, like, hey, be ready to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we're fortunate that, your mom and I, we've got a great relationship. My folks have a great relationship. You know, your mom's side of the family, they both sets of, because her folks are divorced. And so you have both sets that have been married a while now. And so there's there's stability, right, within our extended family. But I recognize not everybody has that. Like there might be some folks listening to this podcast that their parents are divorcing this year. And so a lot of that, talk about dividing up ornaments, dividing up decorations. That happens in the context of divorce. Mm-hmm. So when families get fragmented and they get shattered, there's those connections that who am I connected to? What do we keep? What do we get rid of? What do we hang on to? What memories are it's painful to think about right now. Mm-hmm. So it would be easier to just throw away the things that those memories, or that those that bring up those memories, than it is to sort of like, well, maybe just put them in a tub and forget about them for a bit. Because there might come a time, I'm not saying there will be, but there could come a time when, there's been some forgiveness and there's been some healing, and there's these things that like, hey, it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all hard. It wasn't all difficult. And obviously everybody's family's distinct and different and things. But I recognize that some of these things symbolize connections, but then when those connections are, if we're not diligent, those connections can be broken. Families can be fractured and devastated through loss, whether divorce or death or separation or I was talking one time with somebody. And their husband, it was a lady, her husband was deployed. And I said, she mentioned something. She's like, yeah, I thought about decorating this weekend, but I decided not to. And I asked her, I said, are you going to decorate? She's like, I don't even think I'm going to get anything out because he's gone. And they didn't have kids. And she said, he's gone. I'm leaving for Christmas. So I'm going to be gone, the week. She was leaving like a week before Christmas or something. And then when I get back, it's like the season's kind of over. So what's the point of even decorating? Which is like, yeah, that's a real...
That's fair.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think the danger becomes exceptions becoming patterns. And so... how do we make sure that those moments where things are difficult, things are hard, maybe because they're fragmented or there's separation or there's distance for whatever reasons, how do we make sure that our approach to the holiday season isn't, we're not leaning into exceptions that are slowly becoming patterns? How do we really make sure that we try to make the most of the opportunities that are presented to us. And I think if it's just about, I got a tree to set up and nobody's coming over anyway, so what's the whole point of it? Like, I get it. If that's all it is about stepping into some kind of family tradition or doing things because we've always done it, I can see how it can be divorced of any meaning and purpose. And so that's how our encouragement through these series of podcasts is, how can we approach the season in a way that we're drawing out the meaning that can be found in these things despite our circumstances. Like last time we talked about how I took down the Christmas lights because I didn't like the way they looked because they were ill-fitted on the house. And
that's a strong word. It wasn't ill-fitted.
It was very ill-fitted.
Very.
It was very ill-fitted. I even asked your friend. I was like, it didn't look good, did it? And what did she say? She didn't disagree with me. So So it didn't look horrible, but it didn't look like the way it was in my head. Anyway, my point is
it was not tailored to our house.
Yeah, but but there's other things we're doing around the house to make sure that we can celebrate appropriately.
So. This is true. And okay, like I will say that right now I have a 6-foot Christmas tree in my college dorm. It looks kind of generic given here's 3 girls. We didn't come to college with ornaments.
Yeah.
But we went to the store, kind of bought generic ones. I brought a few like random ones that mom didn't want anymore. She's like, you can put this on your tree. And like, we just had a blast with it. And it's funny because we have it right in front of our window and there's like 2 Christmas trees that you can see from like people's windows that are already set up. And like, you like can tell like, oh, they've decorated it or they haven't. And it's like this place of like, this feels cozy. This feels like home. This feels like, and it's like that space where it's like, even though this isn't my Christmas tree, like I can still sympathize with how it looks and core memories. And now, like with my 2 other roommates, we're having a blast with it. We have like a little gator that we've already named that's on our Christmas tree. And we're like trying to, I don't know, make generic things more custom to make it more fun.
That's good.
And so like
and you guys will have those memories.
And we'll like split up the ornaments when we leave. And then we'll be like, those were our ornaments from when we were freshmen. And we all want to be roommates in the future. So it's like every year we'll just put up the same thing. And we'll be like, we've had this since freshman year.
Yeah, that'll be good.
So we're like starting something.
Yeah.
That I've never really had to experience before.
That's great. Building your own tradition.
I am.
Yeah, building your own memories. Mm-hmm. Good.
Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and you can look at your Christmas tree and be like, how can I spice it up a little bit? How could I get to 7 trees?
That's not something to aspire
Just kidding. To. Okay. You can share, follow, rate, and review this podcast. By doing this, you help us get traction and let others know what this is about. You can follow us. We're real people. We have real accounts.
You can find me on x.com or Instagram. Just look up Milo Curtis.
And
Facebook as well.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at olivia.grace_28 or on Facebook at Olivia Curtis. Join us. Join the fam. Oh, we also have a Resilient Lineage Instagram page, if you guys didn't know that. I think it's just Resilient Lineage Podcast. You can find us. Our logo's there, so...
It's unmistakably seen.
What?
It's unmistakably seen. Like the logo.
Yeah. Yes. We have a newsletter that we're going to release before the new year to kind of just thank you guys. We've made it almost to 1 year on this podcast, which is insane. We're already at episode 46. Just got to get further on and beyond. So anyway, have a great week, everyone.